The massive space station called Unity's Edge floated in the darkness between three suns. Its metal halls stretched for miles in every direction. Today, those halls buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from 47 different alien species arrived for an emergency meeting. Commander Velthar stepped off his crystalline ship first. His body looked like living diamond, and blue energy weapons hung from every part of his armor. Each weapon could turn a mountain into dust. Behind him walked his guards, also covered in deadly tools of war. War Chief Grand Tusk came next. He stood, 12 feet tall with green scales and yellow eyes. Biocannons grew from his shoulders like extra arms. Acid dripped from tubes along his spine. His people had evolved these weapons over millions of years. To appear without them would be like appearing naked. The ethereal whisper folk drifted through the walls themselves. Their ghostly forms carried reality-bending weapons that could make solid things disappear. The machine-like Forge Union rolled in on metal treads, plasma cannons spinning and clicking as they moved. Every species brought their weapons. It was the law. It was tradition. It was survival. Then Kang Dae-ho walked through the main entrance. He wore a simple blue uniform with no armor. No weapons hung from his belt. No energy shields flickered around his body. He carried only a small tablet, computer, and a cup of coffee. The alien representatives stopped talking and stared. "Is that human damaged?" whispered one of the whisper folk to another. "Perhaps his weapons are invisible," suggested a Forge Union unit, scanning Dae-ho with every sensor it had. Dae-ho smiled politely and found his seat at the large round table. The other representatives took their places slowly, still watching him with confusion and concern. The ancient AI mediator appeared as a blue hologram in the center of the table. Its voice filled the room like distant thunder. "Representatives of the hegemony, we face our greatest threat. The Void Swarm has consumed the Kepler mining colonies. 12 billion souls. Gone." Images filled the air above the table. Planets, stripped bare of all life. Space filled with dark, writhing creatures that moved like oil through the stars. Ships torn apart by beings that seemed to exist only to consume. War Chief Grand Tusk slammed his fist on the table. The biocannons on. His shoulders hissed and aimed at the images. "We should have struck first. My fleets could have burned them from space." Commander Velthar's crystal body rang like a bell as energy built up inside him. "The Altarian fleet stands ready. Our crystal bombs can turn entire systems into diamond. Nothing survives that." "Wait," said Dae-ho quietly. Every head turned toward him. "How many civilians were in those systems?" "What does that matter?" snarled Grand Tusk. "They are already dead." "But how many civilians are in the systems between here and the swarm?" Dae-ho asked. He took a sip of his coffee. "If we use crystal bombs or bioweapons, how many of our own people die?" The room grew quiet. The aliens looked at each other, then at their weapons, then back at Dae-ho. A Whisper Folk representative floated closer to the table. "Human, why do you carry no weapons? Do you not understand the danger we face?" Dae-ho set down his coffee cup. "I understand perfectly. That's why I don't need weapons right now." Commander Velthar's crystal form began to glow brighter. "Explain yourself. Every species in this room could kill you with a thought, yet you sit there drinking. What is that?" "Coffee," said Dae-ho. "It helps me think." "This is madness," rumbled Grand Tusk. He turned to the AI mediator. "Why is this human permitted to break our laws? Why does he not carry weapons like the rest of us?" The AI's blue form flickered for a moment. Galactic Accord, 847C. Humans are exempt from mandatory armament protocols during strategic sessions. But why? Demanded Velthar. The Accord provides no further details, replied the AI. Deho watched the aliens grow more frustrated. Some began to pace. Others checked their weapons nervously. The Forge Union units clicked and whirred as they processed this information. Perhaps, said Deho, you should ask yourselves a different question. What question? Asked a small, furry representative from the tunnel runners. If I'm the only one in this room without weapons, and everyone knows I can't defend myself against any of you. Deho paused and looked around the table. Why am I not afraid? The question hung in the air like smoke. The aliens looked at each other, then at Deho, then at their own weapons. Admiral Yoon Hee-jin appeared as a hologram next to Deho. Her image flickered as it traveled across space from the human fleet. Representatives, the Void Swarm has begun moving toward the Centauri colonies. We have perhaps 6 days before they arrive. Then we attack now, roared Grand Tusk. My bioships can reach them in 4 days. And accomplish what? Asked Hyajin. The swarm destroyed 3 entire Kronak battle fleets last month. They consumed a crystal planet that the Altarians said was impossible to break. Velthar's glow dimmed slightly. What are you suggesting? Deho stood up slowly. He walked to the display showing the swarm's movements. I'm suggesting that 47 species, each one smart enough to build starships and weapons that can crack planets, have been fighting this enemy the same way for 3 years. And in those 3 years, the swarm has only grown stronger. Because they consume everything, spat a machine representative. They eat matter and energy and grow. No, said Deho. He touched the display and the image zoomed in on the swarm formations. Look closer. The aliens leaned forward. The swarm moved in patterns, groups within groups. Some formations moved differently than others. They're not one mind, Deho said, quietly. They're many minds pretending to be one. War Chief Grand Tusk laughed, a sound like grinding stone. Impossible. The swarm moves as one, thinks as one, kills as one. Deho smiled and sat back down. He picked up his coffee cup again. Commander Velthar, when your crystal ships fight together, do they ever disagree about tactics? Of course not. We are unified in battle. But before the battle? During planning? Velthar paused. Well, yes. Different commanders have different ideas. And War Chief Grand Tusk, do all Kronak warriors always agree on the best way to attack? Grand Tusk's yellow eyes narrowed. We are warriors. We debate, we test ideas in combat. But when facing an enemy, you put aside those differences? Obviously, Deho nodded. Now imagine you're the Void Swarm. You have different groups with different ideas, but whenever anyone attacks you, you all work together. The outside threat makes you unified. The room fell silent except for the humming of machines and the crackling of energy weapons. So what are you saying, human? Asked Velthar. Deho finished his coffee and set the empty cup down. I'm saying we've been giving them exactly what they need to stay unified. An outside threat to fight against. He stood up again and looked around the table at all the weapons, all the armor, all the representatives ready for war. Maybe it's time we stopped being their enemy, he said, and started being their therapist. The War Cabinet had been meeting for 6 hours. Coffee cups and energy drink containers littered the table. The air recyclers worked overtime to clear the smell of nervous sweat and ozone from alien weapons. Lee Subin sat quietly in the corner, watching data streams on her tablet. She was a xenobiologist, someone who studied alien life forms. For the past 2 years, she had been studying the Void Swarm. Every attack pattern, every feeding behavior, every scrap of tissue they left behind. The alien representatives argued loudly around the table. Each species wanted to use their most powerful weapons. "Crystal bombs," insisted Commander Velthar. His diamond body rang like a bell each time he hit the table. "We turn their feeding grounds into crystal. They cannot consume crystal. They starve," War Chief Grandtusk roared back. "Bioweapons. We poison their food sources. Make every planet. They touch deadly to them. They eat poison. They die." A Whisper Folk representative drifted through the table. "Reality bombs. We remove sections of space where they exist. They cannot consume what is not real." Park Ji-woo, the human logistics coordinator, looked up from his calculations. "Commander Velthar, how many planets would your crystal bombs affect?" "The 17 systems in their current path," Velthar replied proudly. "And the civilian populations on those planets?" Velthar's glow dimmed. "They would be preserved in crystal forever." "So they would be dead," said Ji-woo simply. "Effectively dead, yes." Grandtusk laughed harshly. "At least my bioweapons kill quickly. No suffering." "And the planets remain poisoned for how long?" asked Subin without looking up from her tablet. "Only 300 years, said Grandtusk. "Very efficient." Subin finally looked up. "So we save the galaxy by making large parts of it uninhabitable for 3 centuries. The machine representatives clicked and whirred. "Automated fleets eliminate risk to organic life," they stated. "Machines can be rebuilt. Organic matter cannot." "Your automated fleets lost to the swarm 4 times, Daeho pointed out. "They learned to hack your systems and turn your ships against you. We have improved the security protocols until they improve their hacking." The arguing grew louder. Representatives stood up. Weapons began to charge. Energy crackled in the air. "Enough!" roared the ancient AI mediator. "Every proposal results in massive civilian casualties or gives the swarm new advantages. We need better solutions." War Chief Grandtusk turned toward Daeho. "What about you, weaponless human? What miracle solution do you have? More coffee, Daeho?" Stood up slowly. He walked to the main display showing the latest intelligence reports from the Kepler mining colonies. "Subin, show them what you found." Subin tapped her tablet. The display changed to show microscopic images of swarm tissue samples. "These are from 3 different swarm creatures captured in the Kepler attack." The aliens leaned forward. The IR tissue samples looked similar but not identical. "Same species, different individuals," stated a Forge Union representative. "Obvious." "Look at the neural structures," said Subin. She highlighted different parts of each sample. "This one shows aggression markers typical of frontline attackers. This one shows coordination patterns of a commander type. And this one," she paused dramatically, "this one shows stress markers." "Stress?" asked Velthar. "From what?" "From conflict with the other 2 types," Subin explained. "Internal conflict." The room grew quiet except for the humming of life support systems. "Impossible," said Grandtusk. "The swarm acts as one mind." Dr. Nam Yoon-soo, a human behavioral psychologist, had been listening quietly. Now he stood up. What do you know about human history, War Chief? You fight each other constantly, Gruntusk replied. Very inefficient. And yet we're here, working together with 46 other species, Nam said. How do you think we learned? To do that? You stopped fighting each other. No, said Nam with a sad smile. We learned when to fight each other and when not to. He walked to the display and pointed at the swarm formation data. Look at their attack patterns again, but this time don't look for unity. Look for competition. The aliens stared at the data. Slowly, patterns began to emerge. Some swarm groups took the richest feeding areas. Others got pushed to the edges. Some attacked first and got the best resources. They're competing, whispered Velthar. But they work together against us, insisted a Tunnel Runner representative. Because we're an outside threat, explained Deho. When someone attacks your family, you and your brother stop fighting each other and fight the attacker. But when the attacker goes away, you go back to fighting your brother, finished Gruntusk slowly. Nam nodded. The Void Swarm isn't one species. It's an alliance of species, and like all alliances, it has internal problems. Park Jiwoo pulled up supply line data. Look at their resource distribution. The front-line fighters get fed first. The commanders get the choicest planets. The support units get whatever's left. Some of them are hungry, Subin added. Some are angry about it. But they can't do anything while we keep attacking them. So what do you propose? Asked a Whisper Folk representative. Deho walked back to his seat. We stop being their common enemy. Retreat? Snarled Gruntusk. Run away? Hide? No, said Deho calmly. We become their couple's counselor. War Chief Gruntusk stared at him. Their what? Couple's counselor. Someone who helps people in relationships. Work out their problems. Deho picked up his tablet. Captain Cho Minho is preparing a special operations team. They're going to infiltrate swarm territory. Suicide mission, stated a machine representative. Not to fight, continued Deho. To talk. The aliens looked at each other in confusion and growing anger. Talk to the swarm. Velthar's crystal body began to glow dangerously. They consumed my home system. They killed billions of my people. And, I'm sorry for your loss, said Deho seriously, but killing them won't bring your people back. Understanding them might prevent more deaths. You're insane, said Gruntusk. He stood up, bio-cannons charging. This is war, not a therapy session. Other aliens began standing. Weapons powered up. Energy crackled through the air. Is it? Asked Deho. He remained seated, calm. We've been fighting them for 3 years. They're stronger now than when we started. If this is war, we're losing. Because... We haven't hit them hard enough, roared Gruntusk. Because we're fighting the wrong battle, replied Deho. Velthar's glow reached dangerous levels. What would you know about war, human? You don't even carry weapons. Deho stood up slowly. The room fell silent. Commander Velthar, how many wars has your species fought? 17 major conflicts over the past 1,000 years. How many did you win? All of them, Velthar said proudly. And War Chief Gruntusk, how many wars have the Kronak fought? 33 glorious victories, growled Gruntusk. Deho nodded. Impressive. My species has fought approximately 14,000 wars in the past 1,000 years. The aliens stared at him. How many did you win? Asked Velthar quietly. Deho smiled sadly. All of them. And that's the problem. He walked toward the door. Captain Cho's team leaves in 2 hours. The plan will work because we understand something you don't." "What?" demanded Tusk. Deho paused at the door. "Sometimes the best way to win a war is to help your enemy lose to themselves." The door closed behind him, leaving the armed aliens staring at the empty space where the weaponless human had stood. Captain Cho Min-ho stood in the shuttle bay watching his team prepare their ship. The vessel looked nothing like a human warship. Instead of weapons, it carried communication equipment, chemical processors, and tanks full of synthetic biological compounds. "Are you certain this will work?" asked Commander Velthar. The crystal alien had followed the humans to observe their preparations. Cho looked up from checking equipment. "No, Commander. We're not certain about anything. But we're certain that shooting at them hasn't worked." Dr. Nam Yun-soo walked between the team members, checking their psychological readiness. "Remember, you're not going to fight anyone. You're going to have a conversation, a very complicated conversation with beings who communicate through chemical signals and behavioral patterns." Technical Sergeant Kim Tae-yang finished loading the communication equipment. "The translation programs are ready, sir. We can convert human speech patterns into swarm chemical signals." Lieutenant Oh Soo-jin checked the synthetic pheromone tanks one more time. "Camouflage compounds are stable. We should be invisible to their sensors for approximately 18 hours. War Chief Tusk stomped into the bay. His bioweapons dripped acid on the metal floor. "This is madness. You go to your deaths for nothing." "Maybe," said Cho. "But if we succeed, no one else has to die. And if you fail, you give them information about our capabilities," growled Tusk. Dr. Nam stepped forward. "War Chief, what information could we give them? We have no weapons, no battle plans, no fleet movements. We're going to talk to them about their feelings." Tusk stared at him. "Their feelings? Their anger, their hunger, their frustration with each other." Nam pulled up a holographic display showing swarm behavioral data. "Subin's research shows at least 6 different subgroups within the swarm. They cooperate when facing external threats, but they compete for resources." Deho entered the bay carrying a small device. "The neural pattern disruptor is ready. It won't hurt them, but it will interfere with their unity signals." "You're going to break their hive mind?" asked Velthar. "No," said Deho. "We're going to give them privacy. When you can't hear your family arguing, you stop worrying about outside enemies and start thinking about inside problems." The alien representatives watched as the human team made final preparations. No weapons, no armor, no backup plans involving destruction. "This is how your species solves conflicts?" asked a Whisperfolk observer. Dr. Nam smiled. "This is how we learn to solve conflicts. The hard way." He activated a hologram showing Earth's history, wars, destruction, nuclear weapons, billions dead, cities burned, continents poisoned. "We fought each other for thousands of years," Nam explained. "We built weapons that could destroy our entire planet. We came very close to using them." "What stopped you?" asked Velthar. "We realized that winning a war doesn't matter if there's nothing left to win," said Deho. The hologram changed to show human colonies, space stations, ships traveling between stars, billions of humans living and working together. "So we learned a different way," continued Nam. "Instead of beating our enemies, we learned to understand them. Instead of destroying them, we learned to change them." "And yourself," added Cho. He climbed into the pilot's seat of the shuttle. "The hardest part wasn't changing our enemies. It was changing ourselves." Technical Sergeant Kim activated the communication array. All systems ready, Captain. Lieutenant O started the chemical processors. Pheromone generators online. Cho looked back at the alien observers. We'll contact you in 12 hours. If you don't hear from us, we attack? Asked Grand Tusk eagerly. No, said Daeho firmly. You wait and think, and try to understand what we learned. The shuttle launched from the bay and disappeared into space. The aliens watched until it vanished from their sensors. Now what? Asked Velthar. Daeho walked to a communication console and activated it. Now we prepare for the hardest part. Admiral. Yoon Hye-jin appeared as a hologram. Behind her, the human fleet moved into position around the Centauri colonies. Admiral, are your ships ready? Asked Daeho. As ready as we can be for something this strange, replied Hye-jin. My captains think we've lost our minds. Maybe we have, said Daeho. But sanity hasn't been working very well lately. Dr. Ryu Sang-min joined the hologram. He was a xenopsychologist, someone who studied alien minds. The rehabilitation protocols are prepared. If this works, we'll need to move quickly. Rehabilitation? Snarled Grand Tusk. These creatures destroyed entire worlds. And if we destroy them, we become creatures who destroy worlds, replied Ryu sadly. My species learned that lesson the hard way, too. The hours passed slowly. The alien representatives paced and argued, their weapons charged and discharged nervously. Every few minutes, someone asked if the humans had made contact yet. Be patient, Daeho kept saying. Good conversations take time. Finally, a signal came through. Cho's voice, scratchy with interference. Unity's Edge. This is Infiltration Team. Alpha, we've made contact. The room fell silent. Report, Captain, said Daeho. It's working, sir. The swarm subgroups are confused. They're starting to question why they're working together. Some of them are angry about resource distribution. Others are tired of fighting. Any hostile response? Not yet. We're reading increased internal communication. Lots of chemical arguments, but no attacks. War Chief Grand Tusk leaned toward the communicator. How do chemical arguments work? Cho's laugh came through the static. Very carefully, War Chief, and very smelly. Lieutenant O's voice joined the transmission. We're detecting some physical altercations between subgroups. Nothing major yet, but the unity is definitely breaking down. Excellent, said Dr. Nam. Phase 2 can begin. What's Phase 2? Asked Velthar. Daeho smiled. We offer to help them solve their problems. The aliens stared at him. You want to help the Void Swarm? Asked a Tunnel Runner representative. I want to help them become something other than the Void Swarm, replied Daeho. Some problems can only be solved by changing what you are. Technical, Sergeant Kim's voice crackled through the communicator. Sir, we're detecting some kind of response to our diplomatic signals. They're trying to talk back. The room erupted in shocked whispers. They're talking? Asked Velthar. They're learning to talk, corrected Cho. Apparently, they've wanted to communicate for a long time. They just didn't know how without the hive mind translating everything. Daeho activated the main display. Data flowed across the screen showing swarm movements. The unified formation was breaking apart. Groups separated. Some stopped moving entirely. It's working, whispered a Whisperfolk representative. Phase 2 is a go, announced Daeho. Admiral Hye-jin, begin the approach. Sir, said Grand Tusk slowly, what happens if they decide to reunify and attack us? Daeho looked at the war chief, seriously. Then we'll have learned something important about the limits of understanding, and you'll get your chance to use all those weapons. And if they don't attack? Then we'll have learned something even more important, said Dae-ho. That the universe has room for solutions we haven't tried yet. Captain Cho Min-ho floated in the middle of what used to be a void swarm formation. His small ship drifted between massive bioships that looked like dark flowers made of teeth and tentacles. 6 months ago, being this close to the swarm would have meant instant death. Now it meant sitting in the middle of the galaxy's strangest therapy session. Unity's Edge, this is Alpha Team, Cho reported. The feeder subgroup is refusing to share resources with the builder subgroup. The builders are threatening to stop making new ships. Lieutenant Osu Jin monitored the chemical communication between the alien creatures. Captain, the builders are saying they're tired of making ships that only the feeders get to use. They want some of the good planets for themselves. Technical Sergeant Kim Tae-yang translated the conversation into human language. The feeders are responding that builders don't know how to properly consume planets. They're saying the builders waste too much energy on fancy construction projects. Cho shook his head in amazement. It's like listening to a family fight about who gets to use the car. Back on Unity's Edge, the alien representatives watched the displays in fascination and growing unease. What had been a unified enemy force was now dozens of separate groups arguing with each other. This is working too well, muttered Commander Velthar. His crystal body flickered with nervous energy. War Chief Grand Tusk paced behind his chair. Some of the subgroups are attacking neutral worlds now. They're taking out their anger on innocent people. Dae-ho studied the tactical displays. Admiral Hyajin, how long until your ships can reach the outer systems? The hologram of the Admiral flickered. 6 hours to the first colonies under attack. But Dae-ho, my people are getting nervous. We're watching the swarm tear itself apart, and some of my captains are asking why we don't just finish them off while they're distracted. Because that's not the plan, said Dr. Nam firmly. What is the plan? Demanded Grand Tusk. Let them destroy half the galaxy while they work out their family problems? Dae-ho walked to the main console and activated a new program. The plan is to show them there's a better way to solve their problems than eating everything they can find. Data flowed across the screens, showing detailed psychological profiles of each swarm subgroup. Their needs, their fears, their complaints about each other. Dr. Ryu, are the rehabilitation protocols ready? Asked Dae-ho. Dr. Ryu Sang-min nodded from his position at another console. We've identified 7 subgroups that might be willing to try cooperation instead of consumption. The builders, the explorers, the communicators, and 4 others. What about the rest? Asked Velthar. The feeders, the destroyers, and the dominators are harder cases, admitted Ryu. They define themselves by consumption and conquest. Changing that will take time. Time we don't have, snarled Grand Tusk. People are dying while you play therapist to monsters. A new communication came from Cho's team. Unity's Edge, we have a problem. 3 subgroups have formed an alliance against the others. They're calling themselves the True Swarm, and claiming the other groups are weak. The displays showed new formations as roughly half the swarm creatures regrouped into aggressive hunting patterns. And the other subgroups? Asked Dae-ho. Scattered. Some are fleeing, some are trying to hide. The builders are attempting to construct defensive structures, but they're not warriors. Lieutenant O's voice joined the transmission. Sir, some of the peaceful subgroups are asking for help. They're requesting protection from the True Swarm. The war room fell silent except for the humming of equipment. They're asking us for help. whispered a tunnel runner representative. It's a trap, stated Grand Tusk immediately. Obviously. Maybe, said Day-Ho. But what if it's not? Admiral Hyajin's hologram leaned forward. Day-Ho, I need orders. Do we protect the peaceful swarm groups or not? Before Day-Ho could answer, alarms began sounding throughout Unity's Edge. Red lights flashed as emergency broadcasts filled the communication channels. This is Centauri Colony 7, came a panicked voice. We're under attack, not by the full swarm, by something calling itself the true swarm. They're demanding we surrender or be consumed. More signals came in. Colony 8, the mining station at Proxima, 3 research outposts in the Outer Rim. The true swarm is attacking everything, reported the tactical officer. They're moving faster than the original swarm ever did. War Chief. Grand Tusk slammed his fist on the table. Enough! This plan has failed! My fleets are moving to attack! Wait! Said Day-Ho urgently. No more waiting! Roared Grand Tusk. Your therapy session has made them worse. Now they're organized and angry and people are dying. If you attack now, you'll prove to all the swarm groups that cooperation with us is impossible, warned Dr. Nam. The peaceful ones will rejoin. The true swarm for protection. Better than letting them all eat the galaxy. Grand Tusk turned to the other alien representatives. Who agrees with me? Enough of this madness. Commander Velthar's crystal form began to glow. The Kronak are right. We end this now. Half the alien representatives stood up, weapons charging. The other half remained seated, uncertain. Please, said Day-Ho quietly. Give us 12 more hours. 12 hours? Velthar's glow reached dangerous levels. How many people die in 12 hours? How many people die if we go back to the old way and fight a war that's already lasted 3 years? Day-Ho replied. Admiral Hyajin's image flickered as she received new reports. Day-Ho, I'm getting requests for military support from 4 different peaceful swarm groups. They're offering to share intelligence about true swarm movements in exchange for protection. Intelligence sharing, mused Dr. Nam. That's cooperation. With monsters, spat Grand Tusk. With people who used to be monsters, corrected Day-Ho, and might choose not to be monsters anymore. A new voice joined the communication. Captain Cho? But he sounded different. Tired. Strained. Unity's Edge, this is Alpha Team. We've made contact with a builder subgroup called the Architects. They're requesting immediate evacuation to human space. They say they'll share swarm technology in exchange for protection from the true swarm. The war room erupted in arguments. Some aliens demanded immediate military action. Others wanted to hear more about the technology offer. A few began making plans to capture the Architects for interrogation. Through it all, Day-Ho sat quietly, thinking. Admiral, he said finally, move the fleet to protect the colonies under attack, but don't fire on any swarm groups unless they fire first. And if the peaceful groups ask for help? Day-Ho looked around the room at all the weapons, all the angry faces, all the representatives ready for war. Help them, he said simply. And see what happens when someone shows them they don't have to fight alone. War Chief Grand Tusk stared at him. You're going to ally with the Void Swarm? I'm going to ally with anyone who wants to stop being the Void Swarm, replied Day-Ho, even if it makes everyone else uncomfortable. This is insane, muttered Velthar. Sanity is overrated, said Day-Ho. Especially when insane is the only option left that doesn't involve burning down the galaxy to save it. He stood up and walked toward the communication console. Captain Cho, tell the Architects they have sanctuary. Dr. Ryu, prepare the first rehabilitation facility. Admiral Hyojin, protect anyone who asks for protection. And the true swarm? Asked Grand Tusk. Deho paused. We show them what they're missing by choosing to stay monsters. And if they don't care, then you get to use all those weapons after. All, said Deho sadly. But not until we've saved everyone who wants to be saved. 3 months later, Captain Cho Min-ho stood on the observation deck of Unity's Edge, watching the strangest sight in galactic history. Human ships flew in formation with converted swarm bio-vessels. The creatures that had once consumed entire worlds now worked alongside their former enemies to build something new. Final report, Captain, said Admiral Yoon Hye-jin as she joined him at the viewing window. The true swarm has been contained to the outer rim. They control maybe 30 systems, but they're no longer expanding. And the others? 47. Subgroups have requested sanctuary. 32 have been successfully integrated into productive roles. The architects are helping design new space stations. The communicators have become our best translators for other alien species. The explorers are mapping unknown systems for peaceful colonization. Cho nodded, watching a massive bioship that used to be a planet killer now carrying supplies to refugee colonies. Dr. Ryu's rehabilitation programs are working? Better than anyone expected, replied Hye-jin. Turns out most of them never wanted to be destroyers. They just didn't know how to be anything else. In the war room, the final session of the emergency cabinet was taking place. The alien representatives sat around the same table where they had argued 3 months ago, but now several seats were occupied by former swarm entities. The architect. Representative looked like a living building made of organic metal. It spoke in musical tones that the translation devices converted to words. The true swarm grows weaker each month, it reported. More subgroups defect to join the cooperative. They see that cooperation provides better resources than consumption. War Chief Grand Tusk had been quiet for most of the meeting. Finally, he spoke. I still don't understand. How did you know this would work? Deho, still sitting weaponless, among the armed representatives, smiled sadly. Because my species tried the other way first. He activated a display showing Earth's history. Nuclear weapons, poisoned continents, billions dead in wars over resources, ideology, and territory. We fought ourselves almost to extinction, Deho explained. We built weapons that could destroy our entire planet. We came very close to using them. What stopped you? Asked Commander Velthar. We realized that winning wasn't worth it if there was nothing left to win, replied Dr. Nam Yoon-soo. So we learned to fight differently. How differently? Asked a tunnel runner representative. We learned to fight the problems instead of the people, said Deho. Hunger, fear, misunderstanding, loneliness. The architect entity chimed softly. The swarm was very lonely, always hungry, always afraid. Fighting made the fear smaller, but only for a little while. Dr. Ryu Sang-min pulled up psychological profiles. Most aggressive species are afraid of something. The void swarm was afraid of running out of food. So they ate everything they could find. But eating everything made other species afraid of them, which made them more dangerous, which made them eat more. A cycle, observed Velthar, which we broke by offering them something better than fear, said Deho. And what was that? Asked Grand Tusk. Understanding, replied a new voice. Everyone turned to see Dr. Lee So-young entering the war room. She was the head of the new Interspecies Cooperation Institute. Behind her walked representatives from 6 former swarm subgroups who had become teachers and researchers. "Commander Velthar," she said, "do you remember the first question you asked when the humans arrived?" Velthar's crystal body flickered as he searched his memory. "I asked why humans were permitted to be weaponless in war cabinets." "And do you remember the answer?" "Galactic Accord, 847C." But no explanation was given. Dr. Lee smiled. "The explanation was classified until now. 50 years ago, when the hegemony was formed, every species contributed their greatest military assets: weapons, ships, warriors, technology." She activated a historical display showing the formation of the Galactic Alliance. Humans contributed something different. We offered to be the species that doesn't carry weapons in strategic meetings. "Why?" demanded Grand Tusk. "Because someone has to think about solutions instead of weapons," replied Dr. Lee. "When everyone in a room is armed, every problem looks like something to fight. When one person is unarmed, they have to think of other options." The alien representatives looked at each other, then at their weapons, then at Deho. "You volunteered to be defenseless?" asked a Whisperfolk representative. "We volunteered to be responsible," corrected Deho. "When you can't fight your way out of a problem, you have to think your way out." Admiral Hyejin's hologram appeared in the center of the table. "The final True Swarm holdouts have just sent a communication. They're requesting negotiations." The Yao room fell silent. "Not surrender?" asked Grand Tusk hopefully. "Negotiations," confirmed Hyejin. "They want to discuss terms for joining the cooperative." War Chief Grand Tusk stared at the display. "The entire Void Swarm wants to negotiate?" "The entire former Void Swarm," corrected the architect entity. "We are no longer void. We are full of purpose, full of cooperation, full of hope." Commander Velthar's crystal form began to dim as he powered down his weapons. "If they're willing to negotiate, then the war is over." "This war is over," said Deho carefully. "But there will be other wars, other species driven by fear and hunger and loneliness, other problems that look like they can only be solved by fighting." He stood up and walked to the window overlooking the mixed fleet of human and former swarm vessels. "That's why humans remain weaponless in war cabinets," he said. "Not because we're weak, not because we're protected, but because someone has to remember that the goal isn't to win wars." "What is the goal?" asked Velthar. "To make wars unnecessary," replied Deho. Dr. Nam joined him at the window. "Every species in this room could destroy planets, but destruction is easy. Creation is hard. Understanding is harder. Forgiveness is hardest of all." "And that's what humans specialize in?" asked Grand Tusk. "That's what humans learn to specialize in," corrected Dr. Lee. "After we nearly destroyed ourselves learning the hard way," the ancient AI mediator flickered to life in the center of the table. "Motion to amend Galactic Accord 847C. Proposal. In all future strategic sessions, at least one representative from each member species must remain unarmed." The alien representatives looked at each other in surprise. "You want all of us to be defenseless?" asked a tunnel runner. "We want all of you to have someone who thinks about defense differently," explained Deho. "Someone who has to find solutions that don't involve weapons." "What if we're attacked during negotiations?" worried a machine representative. Deho smiled. "Then the armed representatives defend the unarmed ones, and the unarmed ones think of ways to turn enemies into allies." War Chief Grand Tusk looked down at his bioweapons. Slowly, he began powering them down. If I leave my weapons outside, how do I show strength? By not needing to show strength, replied the architect entity. True strength is helping others become strong too. Commander Velthar's crystal form stopped glowing entirely. This will be difficult. My people have carried weapons for 1,000,000 years. Change is always difficult, said Dr. Nam. But the alternative is staying the same while the universe moves forward without you. One by one, the alien representatives began powering down their weapons. Not all of them. Not yet, but enough to start something new. Motion seconded, said Velthar finally. All in favor of amended Galactic Accord 847C? The vote was unanimous. As the representatives filed out of the war room, Grand Tusk approached Day-Ho. Human, he said quietly. Why did your species really volunteer for this role? Day-Ho looked out at the mixed fleet again. Human ships and former swarm vessels working together to rebuild what had been destroyed. Because we knew something the rest of you didn't, he replied. What? That the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy isn't what you carry in your hands, said Day-Ho. It's what you carry in your mind. And the only way to defend against it is to change how you think. Grand Tusk nodded slowly. And humans learn to think differently? Humans learn to think together, corrected Day-Ho. Even with our enemies, especially with our enemies. As the war cabinet ended and the representatives returned to their ships, Day-Ho remained at the window. Dr. Nam joined him. Do you think it will work long-term? Asked Nam. I think it will work as long as we remember why we started doing it, replied Day-Ho. The moment we think we don't need to be the unarmed ones anymore is the moment we become just another species with bigger weapons. And if other species forget? Day-Ho smiled. Then we remind them, gently, without weapons, the way we always have. In the distance, a former swarm bioship was teaching young humans how to grow living architecture. On another station, children played games with small swarm entities who had chosen to become companions rather than conquerors. The universe is big enough for everyone, said Day-Ho quietly. We just have to help them see it.